Hello and welcome. Today's topic is about 5 things that can be exempt from probate in the state of Florida. So, the 5 assets that can avoid probate in the state of Florida are home furnishings in the main residence up to $20,000 in value, 2 vehicles in the decedent's name. They have to be in their name. They cannot weigh more than 15,000 pounds each. Not likely, but that is the limit put on that. The third thing is things that already have a beneficiary listed, for example, a life insurance policy or a pension. Usually you have that set aside to go to a beneficiary. And if you don't, you better get a beneficiary listed. Otherwise, those will go through the probate process because the court needs to know where those are going. But those things that have beneficiaries like that will go to the beneficiaries and avoid probate. A will, even though it lists who the beneficiaries are, does not mean that anything listed in the will avoids probate. All a will does is tell you what the decedent wants and what their wishes are and where those assets go, but it has no bearing on the probate process. You can't avoid the probate process with just a will. The fourth thing that can avoid probate and will avoid probate in the state of Florida is things that are in a trust. Here we normally have 2 trusts. One is a revocable trust and the other is an irrevocable trust. Basically, irrevocable means that it's not in your power anymore. It's in somebody else's power. Revocable means you still have power over the trust as long as you're alive, and you could change beneficiaries, you could change the trustee, so you have the ability to change that quite easily, actually. Irrevocable means that you don't have that power, that it doesn't mean that you don't have any power, but it means that you can't just make a change on a whim. It's a more complicated process. So one very important note about being in a trust, and that's why I said in a trust, is that you can have a trust, but if the assets are not put into the trust, which is a legal process, then they won't avoid probate. For example, Steve Jobs had a house. He had many properties, but one particular property was not put in the trust. And so when he passed away, the trust protected everything that was in it, but that one particular piece of property that was not in a trust had to go through probate. So that's why I am very emphatic that it has to be in the trust, and you need to make sure that your attorney makes sure that they put all the assets in the trust that need to be in the trust. The fifth thing that avoids probate is some real estate. And by saying some, there are certain types, there are certain things that help avoid real property to avoid probate. So in regards to real estate property, there are several ways that can avoid probate here in the state of Florida. One is that the house is homesteaded. That's huge here in the state of Florida. By right, if it's your main residence, you can homestead a property, which saves on your property taxes, but it also protects the property. And it doesn't protect it from every single entity. So, for example, the IRS, it doesn't stop the IRS, but it does stop creditors from taking the house away. And homestead is a huge protection to the owner. So homesteaded property avoids probate. Property that is in a trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable, but it has to be in that trust. And another thing is property that is in what they call joint by survivorship, deeded that way, and that means that the surviving person is already listed on the deed and they become the beneficiaries. For example, if you had a child that you put on the deed with the joint rights of survivorship, as soon as you pass, they inherit the house, but it has to be listed that way, and they have to be listed on the deed as the surviving member. The other thing is joint tenancy by the entireties, which covers spouses, basically, is usually where that comes into play. Here in the state of Florida, the spouse automatically is inheriting the house. As long as they're legally still married, the spouse legally inherits the house. So if the deed usually helps a lot if the spouse is on the deed, but if not, the state of Florida steps in and the spouse gets the house and will avoid probate. As always, I want to make sure you understand that I am not an attorney, so you should seek legal advice, but this is meant to give you guidelines to go by and how things are handled here in the state of Florida. I hope that you found this video helpful and informative, and you'll hit the like button and that you'll want to subscribe so that you'll get other helpful, informative videos. Until next time, be safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.